all the hype of the huge release of StarCraft 2 this last week, it can be pretty easy to overlook some of the other potentially lesser known titles released around the same period of time. Developed by Akella and published by Kalypso Media on July 13th for the PC for about $40 on Steam, Disciples 3 Renaissance brings some pretty serious strategy gameplay combined with RPG elements, but it's got a rather dull and uninteresting story. Or maybe I just didn't get it because the voice acting is terrible. Now, I love me some medieval RPG fantasy types of games, and I really love to get involved in the strategy games, but is Disciples 3 something that you should check out? And what the hell is Disciples anyway? I mean, I've never even heard of the previous titles. Well, let's check it out. Here's Disciples 3 Renaissance.
As bright as day, it brings into this world of suffering and pain the sign of prophecy, which soon shall come to pass.
As I said before, I had a hard time deciphering what the heck was going on in this game. Perhaps because I'd not played the previous titles, or perhaps because the way the story was presented was just odd. Before each mission, a narrator reads a script on the loading screen that's supposed to explain what's going on, but the script is written like a submission to a creative writing class, and as such, was not straight to the point. The game takes place in the land of Nevendar, a mythical land filled with humans, elves, dwarves, demons, and undead. You know, the typical mythical fantasy world. And the story crosses 3 campaigns, which encompasses the playable races of the Empire, the Legion of the Damned, and the Elves. Basically, some wise men have prophesied the end of the world when a star falls from the sky, so each of the factions sends a hero to investigate. It turns out that the star was actually an angel with remarkable powers and has some kind of mission, but she can't remember exactly what it is. Each of the 3 factions have varied interests in her powers, and that's pretty much it. The game is a struggle between the factions as to who will utilize this angel. I really had a hard time following what was going on most of the time, and that made me not care about the story at all. There are some power struggles, deception, and love, but none of it really matters. At least the game is fun to play.
But he must make haste. She doesn't have much time in Nevendar. Her light is fading with each passing moment.
Sorry, no.
Each of the 3 campaigns in Disciples 3 offers 6 levels, and each should take you between 2 and 4 hours to complete, giving you something like 30 to 60 hours of gameplay. On top of that, you've got a single match and a hot seat mode that gives you some additional missions to play, but all the content in the game is single player, which is kind of a letdown because multiplayer battles would have been really neat. I actually really enjoyed the design of the game. It's cool that you have to strategize on multiple levels. The way in which you plan your moves on the exploration screen can significantly affect the way that the battles will play out for you in the battle screen. But the game is not without its problems. I ran into a bug several times in that when it's an enemy's turn to move, it acted as if I had control of them, but wasn't able to perform any actions and eventually locked up the screen. I also found a way to cheat by allowing my hero to have more units in their party than he was supposed to. The gameplay of Disciples 3 is extremely addicting, and the hours will just fly by as you play, as there are so many gameplay mechanics to keep you interested the whole time. Each campaign follows a primary hero character with their own inventory and stats and skills that level up via battle. Each hero character has a limited number of units that may be in their party at a time, and they have a limited number of spaces that they may move on the exploration screen per turn. In addition, once per turn, the hero may upgrade their town and cast a spell on themselves or an enemy party leader. Spread throughout the exploration screen are territories that may be claimed, typically by fighting off powerful guardian creatures, and upon doing so, will grant you a certain number of resources each turn for as long as you hold it. Resources may be spent to hire additional troops to garrison at your cities, or to carry with you in your party, as well as upgrade the buildings in your primary city, which act as the tech tree for your units. In the chess-like battles, each unit has a limited number of spaces they may move per turn, and you have a wide variety of unit types to play with, including fighters, casters, healers, and ranged damage dealers. Some units have special abilities that may be activated, or they may use an item from a shared inventory pool from your party leader. There's a lot of strategy involved in these battles, as most of the time you're outmanned or outleveled, but over time the battles get quite drawn out and very repetitive. So luckily, you can press the auto battle button, which will simulate the results of the battle for you as long as you can accept that the computer won't play as good as you. When I first started the game, I was immediately blown away with the wonderful graphics and distinct attention to detail, as well as the freaking amazing soundtrack that drew me in and got me ready to get immersed into what seemed to be a wonderful fantasy world. It's very clear that so much time was spent designing the beautiful game world, graphics, and soundtrack that they must have simply run out of money when it came to the voice acting and had to hire the marketing guy's grandpa or something.
Fools. Indeed, their memory was short, for they forgot the horrors and the wars from which Nevendar had suffered a lot. The ancient prophecy was cast into oblivion, and there are no men who'd heard about it.
The story in-game is told through text windows, so the only voice acting is from the narrator between missions, and he's absolutely terrible. I actually muted my sound during the loading screens, as I found it much more enjoyable to simply read the dialogue. I've got some strong mixed feelings about Disciples 3 Renaissance. The story is either really crappy or it's just not well told, but the game design is great and the gameplay is addicting and fun, even though it gets stale after a while. The presentation is wonderfully immersive with beautifully detailed graphics and animations and an engaging soundtrack. It's too bad that the terrible voice acting of the narrator draws you away from the fantasy world. All in all, the game just left an average taste in my mouth. If you're looking for a pretty decent strategy game and are more into turn-based action as opposed to real-time, you might give it a try. What do you guys think? StarCraft 2 or Disciples 3? Leave your questions and comments below. Check out the full write-up, screenshots, and gameplay footage over at ZeitgeistGameReview.com. Stay up to date by following me on Twitter, and check out my other channel, Zeitgeist Other, for gameplay footage. Don't forget to subscribe and press the thumbs up button. Thanks for watching.